Hi, I'm John Ficarra. Welcome to Ficarra Classic. I'm here with the amazing mechanic Matt. Say hi, Matt.
Hi, Matt.
All right, we're off to the races. So today's video is going to be about the Porsche 928s, and you very much do an update. I had to go back to some old videos to see how long it's been. It's been a long time, and I apologize. You know, life gets in the way, cannonballing, projects, client cars, actual work, and your projects sometimes get pushed to the back. Well, now these cars are coming back to the front. We can show you what's been going on. I'm sure you've seen them in the background with the strange paint jobs and weird things going on. You've had questions. Well, they're all going to be answered today. Now, the video is going to be in a weird format because there's some old footage from last year. Their clothes are going to change. Facial hair is going to change. So just stick with me. You'll get the whole story by the end of this video. And we're going to start it right now by going and starting the video all over again last year at Kelly Telfer's house. Hi, I'm John Ficarra. Welcome to Ficarra Classic. And you might notice we're not in the garage at Wingnut Manor, and this is not Mechanic Matt. This is the illustrious, world-famous Kelly Telfer, famous Porsche artist, and all kinds of just makes amazing paintings, which I'll just overlap here. We'll make the paintings in here. What we're doing today is, you know, my 4 928s. Well, we're actually going to do something about their kind of dilapidated care. Kelly, you just can't wrangle an artist. Kelly is going to paint my 928, the Euro 928. We're going to do art cars. And what art cars are, back in the 70s, BMW had very famous artists paint very famous cars. So Kelly has foolishly agreed to paint my 928. So we're going to show you how that happens, what it looks like, and as a bonus, we're not going to do one 928, we're going to do 2 928s with our good friend, Christopher Michaels. And here is Christopher Michaels. We are at the garage at Wingnut Manor. He's going to work on the 79 Euro automatic and turn it into an art car. And thank you for doing this.
I'm so excited. The 928 is my favorite Porsche, right with the 914, and I'm so excited to get to do one of these. I've been wanting to do an art car for years, and when my very good friend John called me up, I was like, absolutely, I will be on a plane. So I'm so excited to be here. This thing is going to be cool.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen him do all his amazing stories in VinWiki, so this will eventually be a VinWiki story, I am sure. And we're never on the camera together at VinWiki, but we are not the same person.
That's true. That's true. We do have the same luxuriant beard, but he has the dreamy blue eyes, and I don't. So I'm second behind. But it's like, he's been one of my favorite storytellers, probably my absolute favorite storyteller on VinWiki. So getting to come out and hang out with him is like joining the band. John and I have done some alleged events together, as well as some public events together. Got to be very good friends, and I'm so excited to spend this time with him and come out here and make some cool art. So I can't wait to see how it turns out.
Yeah, so while he gets to working on this, he's going to turn it from this kind of taped out chalked look, and we're going to actually paint it and turn it into something amazing. While he's out in my garage, slaving away, being the artiste, let's go back to the studio, and I'll do a quick primer on what an art car is. What is an art car? Now that's a tricky question because what is art? That's open to personal interpretation, but for me, an art car is a vehicle that has been painted by a professional artist and is using the car as canvas. Now these art cars go back decades. I mean, really, people have been painting on cars since cars were created. But professional artists painting on cars really took hold in the 60s. And some of the most famous ones were John Lennon's Rolls Royce, and probably the most famous one was Janis Joplin's Porsche 356. And that car just sold at auction for $1.7 million, I think. And that's a testament to not only Janis Joplin, but to the art of the car. Now, race cars were famous for having amazing liveries, but I wouldn't count those as art cars because they were reflections of the branding of their sponsors. Now, sponsors didn't really come in to racing until the late 60s, but you had the famous liveries of Gulf, of course, Martini. You know, there were a lot of amazing cars painted for the racetrack to reflect their brands. Were they art cars? Not quite. I think one of the first art car race cars really was the Porsche 917 LH that raced in the 1970 Le Mans, and it was painted, and it's famously called the hippie car. Now this design wasn't attached to any kind of brand. It was just cool as heck. And to me, still one of the most beautiful, wacky race cars ever created. I love it. And of course, there was also the Salzburg car, which had a really cool paint job. But these weren't technically art cars. To me, this begins with BMW in 1975. There was a Frenchman named Hervé Poulon, and he had himself a 3.0 CSL. He was an independent racer. He approached BMW and said, I would like to have a professional artist paint my race car for Le Mans. And BMW's like, okay, sure, why not? He hired the famous Alexander Calder. Now, Alexander Calder was an amazing sculptural artist, fine artist, and he put down, I think, one of the best art car paint jobs of all time. And the car, as you can see, is just fabulous to look at. BMW was so taken in by this, and it was so well received at Le Mans. The car I don't even think finished, but people loved the look of it, that in 1976, they hired Frank Stella, another very famous artist, to paint another 3.0 CSL. And then in 77, they hired Roy Lichtenstein, a famous pop artist, to do a 320i Turbo, which you can see is unbelievably cool. And in 1979, I think they reached peak art car when they hired Andy Warhol to paint a BMW M1. To me, this is one of the coolest art cars ever built. And the reason for that is not only the look of it, but the story behind it. The story is that they hired Warhol to paint this car. Now, previous to Warhol, those three artists, they had made models and they had made sketches and they had their assistants help paint the cars. Warhol just came in. They had buckets of paint for him. He just looked at the car and was like, let's do this. And before they had the whole machine set up as far as PR guys and photographs and everything that was going on, Warhol pulled out the brushes and in just over a half an hour, painted the entire car, which is insane to think about. But his theory was that it was a car in motion, that it was a fast race car. It should be painted fast and it should look like it's blurred and moving down the racetrack. And you can see that he captured that. Now, some people call Warhol a bit of a hack, but honestly, you can see an artist at work on this car and it came out beautiful. Still, to me, one of the greatest art cars of all time. BMW would go on to continue the art car theme, but they would go away from race cars in the 80s and do some pretty cool street cars. And I liked them, but I, of course, am just a little bit leaning towards the race cars. The coolest one I think that they ran was in 1991, they did a BMW Z1, and that was done by A.R. Penk. And that car just looked to me like the ultimate early 90s expression of an art car. It was just wicked cool. And they started getting more spread out. They weren't doing them every year. But finally, in 2010, they got back to the racetrack with what I think is, again, one of the best art cars ever done. And that is an M3 GT2. This car was designed and painted by Jeff Koons. And it looks like it's going fast sitting still. In fact, a friend of mine did his go-kart to look just like this car. And this might be a new enough car that people watching this might actually remember this one. But an amazing art car indeed. BMW, obviously, part of the art car heritage is right firmly in their wheelhouse. But when I was at the Quail last year, they dedicated an entire strip to art cars. And they had these really cool posters over here behind me. For each car, they had a different poster that you could rip off the wall and keep. And I got them all. I got the full set. But they lined up some amazing art cars. And they were insanely well received. And I was like, you know what? That was kind of what cemented at that point that I had to have an art car. I can paint any car Mexico blue and make it look really nice and shiny. But it's just another painted car where I could have some fantastic artist interpret whatever idea I had on my car and just express themselves. How could I pass that up? A one-of-a-kind car. So that's what I did. And now let's take a look at the journey of the two 928s, starting with my 1978 Euro manual car, which would turn into the Pasha car. The Pasha car's story begins by hooking it up to the back of the Swaymobile, the same Cayenne that we all drove up to the Arctic Circle a few months earlier, and towing the vehicle down to Kelly Telfer's studio in the Sierra Nevada mountains a couple hours south of us. Once we got it there, we taped it off, we started sanding it so the acrylic paint that he was going to hand paint on the car would really stick. Now the idea was to do
a Pasha paint job right from the beginning. That was my idea because the interior of the car is Pasha, which is this crazy checkerboard pattern from the 1970s, and I thought it would look awesome on the outside. So Kelly, quite smartly, then he projected it onto the car to kind of give him a starting point to see how he can move it and stretch it around the car. And he started at the front, nice traditional black and white Pasha. That was my idea. But then, oh, here's his amazing wife, Beth, who I have to give a shout out because nothing happens there without her. And he started black and white at the front. As he went back, he started interpreting it. He got stretching it out, changing the colors. Now, once you hand something like this over to an artist, it's up to them to interpret and create. And that's what you want them to do. And man, is Kelly creative. He just went bonkers with this, and I am thrilled with the way it came out. The back, the sides, the top, all hand-painted by him in a period of over a week. It took him to do this car. It came out stunning. Every part of it, thrilled with. Can't wait to get driving this and showing it to people. I'm going to put in the description below a link to Kelly Telfer's website, Telfer Design, and you can check out his art for yourself and maybe buy some because his stuff is absolutely brilliant. It would look great on your walls. So back onto the trailer it went, and then we brought it back here to my shop to be put back together. Now, onto the next art car by Christopher Michaels. This car was my 1979 Euro automatic, and this was purchased originally to be a parts car for the Pasha car because it had all the Euro parts and Euro bits inside, but it was actually really nice and it ran really well, and it seemed a shame to take it to pieces. The only thing about it was that the paint job had failed. All the clear coat had been coming off, and it wasn't really make sense to paint the car again. Plus they had added the side stripes on it, and I didn't like those, and I didn't want to go back and redo the whole car. But as an art car, it was a perfect canvas. Now, since it had the failed clear coat, what we had to do was sand the entire car down and get the clear coat off the car. Otherwise, whatever paint Christopher Michaels put on it would obviously peel off. Now, Christopher Michaels, he flew out. Matt was out here. Everybody was sanding for a day or two trying to get this thing flat. Once it was flat, Christopher Michaels then laid into it with some chalk and laid out the outline. Now, the design I wanted was some kind of tribute to the 1970 Porsche hippie car that ran at Le Mans. Now, I don't want a copy of it. I wanted his interpretation of it. He did that by laying out all the lines. Then he put down pinstripe. Now, the pinstripe would be layered underneath all the layers of paint he was going to put on top of it. So that was the basic outline of what he wanted to do. Then he started laying on the paint. Now, the base coat he put on top of it was this chrome paint and cans of it. I mean, we emptied out every Napa store in a 50-mile radius of spray paint cans for this thing. And we got all the chrome paint. It actually came out pretty cool looking in chrome. And I kind of liked it. It was a little bit, sort of DeLorean looking when it was done. But what's interesting is that these artists and these guys who do these layered paint jobs on cars, they have a vision. They can see the layers as they're putting one on top of another. They know how it's all going to peel out. So when he peels that tape out from underneath this, he'll have an outline of all the shapes that he had on the car to begin with, and it'll give him a nice guide. So once he got the chrome done, he started laying down the purple, and that came out really, really cool. The purple is supposed to kind of layer over the chrome, so the chrome kind of shines through, and that effect was pretty cool. Then in the next layer was this green. Now, it started to look like a Joker car, and that was kind of funky looking, but he didn't like the way the paint was reacting with each other. So we had the green, we had a little bit of blue, and he laid the blue on the green, and then the blue, and it started mixing weird and doing strange things. And I mean, he hand painted this whole thing with just rattle cans, and it again took hours and hours and hours. 20, 30, 40 cans of spray paint, layered and layered and layered. Finally, he kind of got this blue on it, and then he was just like, you know what? I don't like the way it looks. And this is the great thing about art. Art, you don't fail in art. You take whatever happens, you interpret it, and you change it, and you work with it. Christopher Michaels didn't like the way it worked, so as an artist, he just kept moving on to find the successes that he wanted in the art he was creating. So he just like, you know what, I'm going to hand paint the green part. This is the kind of stuff that was really cool to watch him do this. And he lays out the entire green paint job by hand. So that's all hand painted on there while layering it on top of the spray painted blue underneath it. And remember that pinstripe's still under there, which will act as a guide. That will be peeled off, and then he'll hand paint white to separate the green from the purpley blue. And when all that was done, the car really all of a sudden just came together. And again, this was days and days of work that Christopher Michaels was in my garage. But you'll see here, we cranked it out at the end. We got the green all painted in, and then he started putting the numbers on, and there he is, hand painting in the green. And there's the number. Now, number 7 was supposed to be for Rennsport 7, but we didn't get around to that. But there's the white pinstripe now with the pinstripe pulled off. Christopher Michaels gets to sign his artwork, of course, and it came out amazing looking. I am thrilled with this car as well. Both the cars together look just tremendous. I'm so proud to have both of these in my collection. I'm so happy and thrilled that both of these beautiful artists worked with me and helped me create these amazing works of art.
All right, now we're back at the garage and back to modern day. So this is what the cars look like now, and I'm going to take you through both the Hippie car and the Pasha car. So let's start with the Hippie car. And as you can see, Christopher Michaels did an amazing job with this. It looks great. And now we're kind of getting it going, so I want to go drive the thing and eventually sell the thing. So let me show you a few things we've done that I don't think came across in the earlier parts of the video. These are the wheels that Christopher Michael hand painted for it. These are a set of original 16-inch phone dials, and they're going to look really good. We're going to get some rally tires for these, and it's going to look dynamite. It's going to pull the whole safari look together. And we got my friend Greg. He's going to do a little 2-inch lift to the car, so just a little bit to give it a little bit more clearance and the bigger tires. It looks so good. On top, we've got a roof rack. Now this roof rack is actually what's left of the roof rack we built for the 6-wheeled Range Rover. Now that was 2 roof racks we put together. So these are the 2 ends of the other parts of the roof rack, which fit perfectly on the car with a set of Yakimas. Finding the clips for these Yakimas, by the way, was such a pain in the butt. They just aren't around for 928s anymore, but we got the correct Yakima clips. All looks great. The light is actually off the front of the Cannonball ambulance when we ran that in the C2C in 2019. So that pulls this whole thing together. Inside, I've got a set of seats. We swapped out the crumbling Pasha seats that were in here. I got black leather 928 seats that came out of, believe it or not, the really bad free parts car. The guy took the interior and brought it inside because he was afraid about mice eating it. So the interior was dynamite. So yeah, great black leather seats. They're going to be super nice. Now, what we're doing under the hood is kind of the last of the mechanical projects for this, hopefully, is we're doing a timing belt for this. Now, on 928s, timing belts, you'll hear about them all the time. Got to do the timing belt. Make sure the timing belt is done. Absolutely. On the early 928s, these were interference engines. Now, you'll hear that term sometimes. Interference engines means when the piston's moving and the valves are moving, if the cam stops moving, like the timing belt breaks and the cam stops moving the valves up and down, the valves just kind of hang there. The piston comes up and rams into the valves. Interference. And it smashes the valves, screws up the piston, it hoses your engine. You got to get it all fixed. So you got to make sure if you ever buy an older 928, the later cars were not interference, but the early ones, these 16-valve engines were interference engines. Make sure the timing belt has been done recently, and there's proof of it. So we're going in here, we're putting a new timing belt on. We actually took the top of the motor off, all the intake, because there's lots of oil lines going through there. They were leaking. My philosophy is when you go into an area on a car, any car, your friend's car, a restoration, whatever, you make sure that entire area is clean, fixed, and restored before you put it back together again. I'm not the guy like you see in a lot of car shows where they go, oh, you got to replace the water pump, and they pull the water pump off. Everything's filthy, and then they put the dirty bolts back in the water pump. It makes my skin crawl. So this is going to be done correctly. It's not a full restoration, obviously, but it'll be done really nice. The engine will be sweet. This is a Euro car. So this is a Euro automatic 4.5-liter V8, and it's going to be dynamite when it's finished. It'd be plenty enough to us to squirt around and do some safari driving in this. Now, this was done by Christopher Michaels. I suggest you help support the man, and you can do that by going to his new store where you can buy Christopher Michaels merch. I'd be wearing one of his shirts right now. If I had one, I'm gonna have to go to the store myself and buy one. I will, Christopher Michaels, I'll go buy one of your shirts, and I'll put a link to his store in the description below, along with a link to my store where you can support Ficarra Classic and maybe buy a shirt or a sticker. And we're eventually gonna sell this car. You're gonna be able to buy it, And some of the proceeds will go to Christopher Michaels as well, because he did such a cool job. It's such a fantastic car. Now, the Pasha car has been kind of a different project. We wanted to make sure that it was in really nice condition. This car is essentially a rolling restoration. And so we pulled the motor out. I wanted to reseal it. It was leaking everywhere. The car's been sitting for years. Even though it only has 70,000 miles on it, there was tons of oil leaks. So we pulled the engine out, but we've discovered a couple of the pistons have a little bit of blow through. It's a little concerning. We're going to test it some more, make sure. But what I think happened was these cars have mechanical fuel injection, the CIS system. And that does is you have a continuous flow of fuel going into what this is called is a fuel distributor. And mechanically sends the fuel to each piston just the same way a distributor sends electricity to each piston when it has to go. This is sending fuel. And these go bad after a while. What I think is maybe a couple of the seals were sending too much fuel to one cylinder when it was not firing, loading it up with fuel, washing out the cylinder. Because when we went to change the oil, which took the oil out of this to take it out of the car, it was this runny, disgusting, kind of milkshake looking stuff. And sometimes it's coolant. If you have a blown head gasket, that's coolant. And coolant will separate from oil when you let it sit for a while. This didn't separate. It was gasoline in the oil. So we got a little blow through. So we had the distributor rebuilt, and we'll see how badly the cylinders are washed out. We might have to rebuild the engine. Now that brings up a big question. Do we keep the engine? I mean, honestly, I love these motors. Always have. I think they sound great. They have great grunt and pull. They can be built up into some cool things. But since the engine's out, swap comes to mind. I know it came to mind for Matt, right, Matt?
LS?
Mm-hmm. Always with the LS. We had such a great time LS swapping the ambulance that Matt wants to LS swap the world. But that to me is a little, I don't know, it's too easy. It's been done so many times. These cars have had Toyota V12s put in them. They've had 2JZs put in them. They've had LSs of all sorts put in them. They've had every engine imaginable, including a Boeing helicopter turbine jet motor has been put in one. So there's nothing I can put in here that's going to blow any people's minds. I'd like to maybe rebuild this engine and put a supercharger on it, which was a thing people did in the day. I had a couple of people offer me maybe to buy their superchargers. I might go that route, rebuild this so it takes the supercharger really well and do it right and put a Porsche motor back in. I would be interested in hearing your opinions in the comments. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of LS people out there. I do read the comments, and I always take that, with a grain of salt, but I'm leaning towards putting the Porsche motor back in and rebuilding it. We'll see how that goes. But I'm on the fence. But I do want to show you how big the engine bay is, why you can put anything in here. Swing through there, Matt. You can see how wide this engine bay is. It's massive. It's very low, but it's very wide. And the reason for that is, here, come around the front of the original motor. They wanted to put a V8 in the front of the 928, but they wanted to keep the hood extremely low. So the engine is actually pretty compact. It's actually lower than like a 302 of the same period from a Ford, even with the giant cams on the ends. So they wanted a wide, low engine, which gave us a wide, low engine bay, so you can fit whatever we wanted in there. There is a temptation to do something crazy, but again, I always lean back towards the original manufacturer's engine and doing something cool with that. So maybe a supercharger. Then the rest of the car is the beautiful paint that Kelly did, which grows on me every day. Kelly, again, thank you. This is so cool. I just like looking at it from every angle. And we'll do a full kind of video of each car, walk around of it when we get them outside and the weather's nice and they're together. And you can take a good look at the whole cars. But I want to preserve this paint. This is acrylic paint, like any painter would use on a piece of canvas. So it is a little fragile for driving around. So I'm going to have my car painter friend come over and see if we can shoot a clear coat over the whole thing and seal it in, which I think would look fantastic. It's a matter if the chemistry works. The car clear coat will stick and hold the acrylic together. We'll find that out. The wheels are growing on me. They're forge line wheels, these original old school forge line wheels. They're really light, they're super strong, they're actually extremely rare. And they look kind of good with the crazy paint job, although I really am a phone dial guy and I'd love to put a pair of 17-inch phone dials on here. We'll see if that happens. On the fence with that. Still looking for European headlights. The European headlights were 8 inches wide. They were massive, but they're also super expensive, and I haven't found a set of those yet. So it's my project car. And I'll keep working on it, keep making decisions. And I got decisions to make about the engine, I got decisions to make about the interior. And that's the fun part about it. It's why we do this, is that we can kind of like, think about it, change our minds, and do something else, and have some fun, and do something, and change our minds and do it again. Like, whatever this turns out to be, it's a labor of love, and I'm having a lot of fun. And Matt's having a lot of fun. Right, Matt? Aren't you having fun with the Porsche engine?
Be more fun if it was an LS.
There, I knew that was coming. So, anyway, that's the wrap up. We're caught up on both of these cars. I'm going to get one of them running so I can bring it out to some shows. We'll be moving around this summer. Definitely, hopefully by the Historics, we'll have this guy going. So we'll see. Fingers crossed. It is a personal project. We'll see if it gets pushed aside. We'll see what the limo does as far as pushing these aside. But thanks for watching. Thanks for getting through this whole ridiculous video. But thanks for you're now caught up on the 928s. And I got more videos coming. Please, again, the YouTube thing, please like and subscribe. Tell your friends. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you sticking with me. Appreciate you watching my channel. Appreciate you watching me today. I want you to have a great day. Thank you.